What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good early evening here in the West Coast. My name is that's the name of the library. My name is Danny Lay. I'm a librarian here at the Santa Clara City Library. And thank you for joining us for this talk with Dino Ignacio. We're so proud to be able to present these discussions during everybody's sheltering in place, especially during this difficult year. But being able to do, amazing talks with people within the industry like Dino, it's a great opportunity for us to learn from him, as well as get to know what's happening within the industry he works within. So I'd like to just do some housekeeping. We are recording live right now, but this talk will be uploaded for a different time, so you'll be able to watch it again, share it with your family and friends, and definitely, please, if you like this talk or you have comments, let us know by hitting our website, and I also put it in the Zoom webinar chat link. And if you have questions during our discussion that you would like to ask Dino, please put it in the Q&A box or in the chat, and I'll definitely check on that and ask him if it fits our schedule. Without further ado, I'll say a little things about Dino. Dino is a designer, storyteller, and builder, originally from the Bay Area, now living up north in Seattle, Washington. He has over 15 years of experience working in media and the video game industry, and is currently a design lead for Facebook's Reality Labs via Oculus. So let's all give a warm virtual welcome to Dino.
Hey,
What's
Danny.
up, man? How you doing, brother?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for making time. Really excited to just discuss things and, for us to get to know you. Always behind the face of the products, we want to talk about the people, right? So maybe tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. Again, thank you for having me. Well, my name is Dino. I was born in the Philippines. I lived there for a big chunk of my life. Then I moved to, well, let me start there. I was from the Philippines. I went to school there, and then I eventually moved to San Francisco in '99. And then I know we both ended up at the Academy of Art, and then eventually I ended up in the games industry, and then now work at Oculus. That's the shortest way to describe.
Yeah, your biography will just pull it down to the bare minimum. So definitely you talked about your beginning, your life in the Philippines. So where did you go to school to, as you began your creative journey and your education, and what was your focus in the Philippines at that time?
That's an excellent question. Uh, I've always wanted to be in the arts, so I actually went to the University of the Philippines College of Fine Arts when I was back in the Philippines. And this was a lot because I didn't know that art was anything beyond painting on a canvas. That's just, this was in the 90s. My thought of what being an artist was to be someone who, just like got dirty with acrylics and oil. And sure enough, it is. And in fact, I got pretty good at it. But I think I learned over time that art was more than that. And so how it happened for me was that in '94, a friend of mine gave me a modem, a 14.4 modem, in fact, like a really slow dial-up modem. For those of you who remember what that is. And I connected to the internet for the first time in 1994 via CompuServe. The web wasn't even a thing yet, right? It was just happening. And then I decided, well, and then I learned about Photoshop. I learned about the World Wide Web, and I started making a website. And then one thing led to another, and building a website led me to making this little niche humor site at the time called Bert is Evil. And just to paint a picture for people who weren't around at that time, the internet back in '94, '95 was not a funny place. It was mostly, if you went to the World Wide Web, it was a lot of like research papers and really mundane write-ups and stuff. And so there was just a few funny sites. And so this is me just saying that I made a website and somehow it struck a nerve. It was weird, it was funny. And to describe what it was a bunch of pictures of Bert from Sesame Street. that I crudely photoshopped into weird situations, right? So it was him hanging out with um, Adolf Hitler. He was there standing by the grassy knoll while JFK's car is driving by, and all these like horrible things. And somehow this gets nominated for the Webbies. And so in 1998, I go to San Francisco because of that nomination. And I won the Webbies that year for Weirdest Website and People's Choice Award. And I remember being there at the Palace of Fine Arts and realizing, oh my gosh, all this time I thought art was just painting. And now I'm seeing this merger of digital technology and artistry coming together as I meet all these people. I met some amazing people that night. David Bowie was there. I can't remember his name right now, but the guy who started Burning Man was there. I was talking to these amazing people, you know, like luminaries of the industry. And I realized, oh my gosh, I need to go back to San Francisco. And so sure enough, after all that, moved back to the flew back to the Philippines and made it my goal to somehow find my way back in San Francisco. And within a year, I was able to. I decided I'm gonna go study. And so I came back in '99 at the start of that school year to study at the Academy of Art. And so that's where I learned 3D animation and 3D modeling.
And to see this passion, and I mean, Bert is Evil, it's pretty legendary amongst a lot of people who were at the web during that time. Even now, it still gets talked about, those photos, you know. That's some things that we whisper to each other during that early stages of the internet. For me, growing up in the internet was AOL, you know, definitely chat rooms and slow dial-up, like crazy. You can't pick up the phone or anything, but it was a wonder to connect. And the amazing thing is that you went from the Philippines creating this content during a time that content like that did not exist, to winning an award and finding maybe a passion in a new direction, right? So as you went and decided to move to America, to San Francisco, and pursue your career, what did your family think about this this idea you had of your new life? Because I definitely know in more traditional Asian families, this is not something you do for a career. You actually is more of a hobby, right? So what did they say about this before you up and left?
You know, at the expense of this sounding like a psychiatrist session between you and me, I feel like you know my life so well, Danny. But you know, my father and I did not see eye to eye about the arts, as many as you described, as many Asian families were. I was being groomed to be in the family business. My parents and my siblings were in the construction business. And I was the youngest of 5 kids, and my father looked to me as someone that will work with him and maybe eventually take over his business. And I did something as I was applying for colleges back in the Philippines that he did not appreciate. I basically failed the entrance exams to all the colleges he wanted me to go into, and got into the University of the Philippines through the talent determination test, which is the one where if you're good in artistic skills, they let you into the fine arts college, and that's the only place they let you in. And it's almost like I tied his hands to like the fact that the only way I'm going to go to college is through art, and he did not appreciate this. And this led to like him and me not talking for a few years, actually. But eventually, after the Webby Awards, he kind of saw that maybe there was indeed a future for what I was trying to do. And there was a moment in time when he's like, I'm proud of you. Congratulations on that. Maybe I don't understand this, but maybe there is something. And so I went to the States with his support. He helped out. I couldn't have survived like I did on my own. I had a lot of help from him. And so even though we didn't see eye to eye in the beginning, it all worked out in the end. And eventually, I mean, fast forward to like the future of all this, when I finally work in Facebook, that's like the one job that I think my mom really understood. Like my mom's like a big avid Facebook user. I get it. Like, yeah, he works at Facebook. That's a good job, right? And I'm like, okay.
It's a strange thing with, for at least proud parents who don't understand anything we do, if we can align a brand name that they're either using themselves or very, aware of, they're like, Alex, long as you tell me you're working at Facebook, I don't care. I'm proud of you. You're like, all right, okay, mom, thanks. Thanks,
Thank
dad.
you.
Thank you, I guess, no, don't ignore the fact that I've built this amazing family, and home. I work at Facebook, but no, it's a great accomplishment, definitely. So I'm gonna dial it back. So you definitely jumped into right after the Academy of Arts into working for the video game industry. You did work for at a time GameStop, as well as EA or Electronic Arts. Can you tell us a little bit about the industry at that time and some of the projects you've been working on since
Yeah.
then?
So I straight out of college, um, one of my first, well, no, I should say one of my first jobs out of college that was in the tech industry was I was making PowerPoints for people at a company called NetApp. And it's like for about a year and a half, it was like a really good gig. Like they were paying me by the hour to make PowerPoint presentations for other people. That was a great gig, like, let me tell you. And it really made me appreciate information design. But anyway, after that, I got into GameSpot, and that was an interesting time for me as I got into games more so from the side of the journalism side.
Hmm.
I helped create like content and shows for GameSpot to talk about video games, and then eventually it afforded me to go to Tokyo Game Show and check out the crazy stuff happening in Japan. So I love that job. And then I ended up at EA, and it was a really fun. Um, it was a really interesting way of getting into EA, I think, because I remember um, the job opening was for a user interface designer, obviously, and I had a choice. I could either show all this old stuff that I had that was web related and CD-ROM and multimedia related that I'd done that was really more UI, or I could show all this motion graphics work that I'd done at my time at GameSpot and ABS-CBN, which I also worked at for a while. And somehow in my head, I made the decision to show the motion graphic stuff because it was a lot more exciting to me. And in the end, it paid off because to describe my demo reel at the time, I had a lot of these like floating panels and shapes that sort of like moved around as a camera flew around them. And what I didn't know at the time was that the game that I was interviewing for, which had not been announced yet, was going to be Dead Space.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff that I was showing in my reel was exactly what they were looking for the UI for the game. A lot of like floating panels and whatnot. And so by making that weird decision to not show my UI, but rather show my motion graphics work, I got the job, and it became like the cornerstone of what I was able to do at EA. Like I was able to really push UI into new directions and not just be, click here, button here. I was able to design things that weren't expected out of UI at the time. And so
Yeah.
sorry.
No, go on, go on.
Oh, just to finish answering your question. So at EA, I worked on, um, like I said, Dead Space 1, 2, and 3. And then I ended up working on Dante's Inferno, Battlefield 3, 4, and Hardline, and then a Star Wars game that never shipped. And then around that time, I moved to Oculus.
Right on. And for me, I'm a fan of the Dead Space series just because of space horror, or the game of survival horror. That when this game came out, it was in space. I was like, okay, here we go. And the fact that as games rapidly iterated through the time, people tend to forget that when you can pivot and create a new genre out of a pre-existing genre that's already been populated by zombies and other ghost things and put it in space, I was like, all right, this is definitely something new, and the atmospheric quality really gives me the Ridley Scott Aliens feel. So I'm scared. So I'm grateful for all your contributions to video games at the time, and definitely at EA, because from a lot of people, they only know EA maybe because they're familiar with the sports department and their division of games that came out of that. But there's more than that for Electronic Arts, and exciting that what you provided with in that realm. So, all right, let's talk about how'd you get involved with Oculus? Because how I knew about Oculus, granted I wasn't living in the Bay Area. You always hear about the murmurings of new things. Working in libraries, we definitely got hooked up with a couple VR headsets from Oculus and allowed our patrons to use it. So how was that, your work in EA segued into Oculus?
Yeah, it was an interesting moment again. This was 2015. I remember, I think it must have been early on in the year. I got a call from two separate companies, almost like a week apart, and both in Seattle. One was HoloLens or Microsoft, right? Microsoft's HoloLens team, and then also Oculus, who had just been bought by Facebook,
Mhm.
and both were going to be jobs in Seattle. And in my head, I'm like, one, I feel like I'm now at this point been at EA for 8 years. I've considered myself a lifer. I don't think I was ever going to leave EA. I love my work. I love my friends. I love the culture. I love the way, it was like my life, right? So every day I drive to work with my kid. I drop off my kid at the daycare downstairs. I go upstairs. I come down for lunch with my daughter or hang out with some friends. And then I go home with my kid at the end of the day. It was like my life. I thought that was going to be me forever. But then this opportunity came around, like I said, both in Seattle, and Microsoft did something really interesting, which was they knew that moving to Seattle may be a big change for someone like me. And so what they did was they flew me, my wife, and my kid, all three of us, for my interview. They're like, you know what, come to Seattle. We'll fly your whole family. We'll put you in a hotel near all the fun stuff, and you guys hang out for 3 days, in their mind, so that my wife and daughter would fall in love with Seattle. And sure enough, they did. But then the other offer from Oculus came around, and my wife did not need to be, or my daughter did not need to be convinced to move to Seattle. They were set. It was just a matter of like which company. And
Right.
so almost like Oculus has Microsoft to thank for convincing my wife and kid that Seattle was going to be fun. So, but that's how it happened. But behind the scenes of all that, I think EA was really fun, like I said, but I think the area of which I was being allowed to be innovative was getting smaller and smaller.
Mhm.
As franchises and as teams get bigger, or as the bottom line becomes more clear, companies need to be a little bit more safe, and that's where EA was. When I first came in 2008, I was allowed to do some crazy stuff with Dead Space. Maybe this is another story, but we, when I was making the intro menu for Dead Space, and we didn't have time to do 3D animation, me and my team got ourselves a big dead carcass of a lamb, and we started chopping it up and filming the bones and breaking things apart and putting it in a video in the opening of the Dead Space menu. And I can't imagine EA letting me do that now, but this was 2008, and they let me do some crazy shit back then. All to say that, these things don't happen now. But
Wow. Yeah, I don't think so.
that's a whole different story. But anyway, I can show you pictures at some point if you want. But anyway, Oculus was an opportunity to be innovative again. And sure enough, it was the right decision. And even now, I've now been there for 5 years. Every day is a new challenge. Every day I'm trying to predict what the future can be and how we can make the future better. And it's a constant mental exercise of vision making and thinking, how else can we solve other problems? And that's what it's been. And that's why I moved.
And that's very significant to see right now, especially for us listening in across the world right now. It's, you were working on video games, which is, a noble pursuit, especially in the 3D space, creating, environments and the way people interact with the game, right? But definitely, to jump to Oculus and, now with Facebook's Reality Labs, you're working on the future of the way the world works, how communities interact in the virtual space, especially with virtual reality and AR and other technologies that utilize our spaces in the internet or outside the internet. Because I definitely think of pop culture as a big speculative fiction, sci-fi to help us envision this future, especially like Star Trek's holodecks, Lawnmower Man, the Tron series, and recently for most people, Ready Player One, where the commercialization of virtual reality to every household as a commonplace, thing to do. It's kind of amazing. So, what do you currently do at the Facebook Reality Labs, and what are you kind of trying to combat, as you were saying?
Yeah, I'm the design lead for avatars. So what that is we are trying to figure out, and we're trying to design ways for people to embody a digital version of themselves, so that they can interact and defy distance, right? So, and it starts with VR, obviously, but it doesn't end there, right? So whether it's you and I inside virtual reality, or me in reality and wearing augmented reality glasses and seeing you represented in front of me, or both of us, possibly even as avatars in other opportunities, maybe even on your phone, I don't know. But the point is, we're trying to create ways for that to be easier, not just for ourselves, but other people, right? So the avatars we're building are designed to be used by other companies if they want it, and make it easy for people. Let's say you're a game developer, and you're trying to make a game, and the cost of building avatars that are inclusive, diverse, and really functional, and it's hard. And maybe you don't want to invest in that, but you want those in your game. And so you could use what we build and just plug it in. So that's what we're building right now. And the most important thing that we're doing, and I'm really proud of this, is we're building it with inclusivity and diversity in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that I mean, you can look like yourself in real life, with our choices for skin color, eyes, hairstyles. There's a lot of attention to hair for people of color. I know you used to rock a mohawk, afro. We've got those, the Asian afro is in there. It's like we've got the wide range of clothing styles and ways to make people feel like they represent themselves, whether, and it's not there right now, but eventually, you could imagine, if you identify as someone with a prosthetic, can you represent yourself that way?
Mm-hmm.
There are ways to give yourself that look. And so age lines, is it important for you to know that you are older, or do you have beauty marks on your face? Like, these are things that we're tying into the concept of avatars. So it's not just being able to embody an avatar, but also to make sure that you feel comfortable in that embodiment, and create that space for that. And so the value of all this is that right now you and I are talking, Danny, but there's a piece of glass between you and me, right? But imagine a world where when you say, Dino, let's talk, I'm literally in the same room with you, and vice versa. And these are baby steps towards that. And it's an exciting future.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pull it up just like in Star Wars, and you'll you'll pop up from this little platform, and we'll chat. Or I have a life-size emitter somewhere, and I see you, and it used to be so far-fetched, but now as we see technology rapidly coming into view by many different companies, and the possibility of that it being commercialized and integrated into everyday life, it's not impossible. And I'm grateful that you mentioned, the push to make sure that, the ability to see, so for someone to see themselves in these avatars is very important. I know in the past, especially in the way, representation has always been created by the creators, without different viewpoints, especially in industries where there's not a lot of different ethnic representation. I'm glad to hear that in the future in the digital space, I'll be able to shape me to the closest approximation, even to the minute detail, if I wanted to, right? I definitely could be buff or tall if I wanted to, but I'm okay with average Asian size too, So I'm excited to see where that possibility ends up. And because especially we're not, just talking about video games, we're talking about daily life, and that's exciting, building worlds out in cyberspace. So we're speaking about where virtual reality is going, especially how maybe Facebook is one of many different organizations or companies trying to build that out. We know that you just dropped the Quest 2, your latest headset. I'm excited to go try it out myself, especially since the last iteration allowed it to be more wireless, and that freedom to walk about within the world made me excited. So now this is out, I know that the price point is still within a reasonable range, but for most people, we're talking about accessibility. That's still an investment. So in what ways is Oculus and Facebook in terms of projects or community works that to help make this technology available for use, at least so that people can be comfortable with? And what other ways do you see VR becoming more affordable in the future? Is that our goal for you guys?
It definitely is, right? The first part of that is, like you said, the headset is cheaper than it ever was, right? We're talking $100 less than the last model, despite the fact that it's twice as fast and twice high, not twice the resolution, but a lot higher resolution, and it went from like 60 hertz to 90 hertz. So the graphics are better, the processing is faster, and yet it's $100 cheaper. That's a big deal. But I do recognize what you're saying, that even at the price point that it's in, which is $300, it's still not the cheapest, right? It's still pretty expensive, but it's slowly getting there. The goal is definitely bringing more people in. We as a company believe, or Facebook as a company believes, and I agree, that the next computing platform will be something like this, if not this, right? And so we need to be able to arm people with it. So I keep thinking about the use case of let's say somebody who's somewhere really far, like, I don't know, pull a country out of your head, like let's say Zimbabwe, somewhere really far, that wants to go to Harvard and wants to avail of the education that they could possibly get in the United States. Even now, there's Khan Academy and other places where you can experience education online, but there's still something missing. And the missing thing is the real-time human interaction that you can have when you're in a room with other people. When you hear people spatially around you, someone talking from here or here, or having like an ability to have shared memories of like, oh, that dog we saw was right there to the right. That connection that we have because we have that shared memory is so much more poignant and powerful than if you say, I thought it was here on the left and I say it's on the right. VR makes things spatial. And so it's important for us to make that person, like I mentioned, this made up person that I came up with from Zimbabwe that needs to go to school, like creating an opportunity for that person is really important for us to be able to like make sure that anyone can experience whatever they need to from wherever they are is a big deal. And so, like I said, the first goal is to make it cheaper and cheaper. And the second one is what we've already piloted in California that you alluded to earlier, which is that Facebook and Oculus donated like headsets to every library in California a couple of years ago. These programs will keep going on. There's a whole part of Facebook and Oculus dedicated to outreach for making sure that we're helping create more opportunities for STEAM projects and libraries to be able to use this technology.
And you made a great point during your answer, and thank you for that. Was that, you know, in the possibility of the VR space, equity for people, for opportunity. Because I thought of that. Because what are we doing now in this time of the quarantine and COVID? Especially for educators, they're utilizing platforms like Zoom or, you know, any video conferencing, but they're having the difficulty of, you know, maybe they're seeing 30 or 40 heads of their students, and it's hard to manage that because it's just on one screen. And so there's no spatial, you know, connectivity of seeing everybody in a space. But with VR, your avatar, whoever you want to download into that classroom, will exist. It will be a real person. That's the exciting thing. You know, really, we're talking about eliminating distances or barriers for opportunities. And though it'll live in the virtual space, that gets better, right? In time and in the iterations of that. One of the things when talking about this answer is we're also talking about security. So it's, with new ideas and opportunities, there will be always questions about cybersecurity and how that it will be, you know, safe for people to use. Do you have any comments about that as you guys are continuing building this out?
Yeah. Yes. So, the elephant in the room here is that, and this is my opinion, Facebook doesn't have the best reputation in terms of um, public, what's the word I'm looking for? Perception, right? People don't really look at Facebook and say, oh, Facebook, I don't trust you, blah, 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 they'll say. And the interesting thing is that whether we like it or not, that's been a great way for us to always do our best to do even better, right? I'm not here to defend the company or make you think otherwise if you think Facebook is one way or the other, but I will say that I have never worked with a team that's more concerned about how our products can possibly affect others. There's a lot of attention in terms of making sure there's privacy, there's security, there's integrity in everything that we do. And I'm speaking right now, obviously, about the work we're doing in the reality lab side of things, the VR, AR side of things. I think the same can be said about the rest of Facebook, but I don't have firsthand experience there. But I'll speak from what I know is that Horizon, which is the new product that we're launching or we've launched, starting to roll out right now, the safety and privacy tools from within that app were designed for the longest time. We were working on that for over 2 years. This amazing designer, Arthur, spent years upon years of making sure that we had the right model of how we can make sure that people feel safe, people don't feel like they can be harassed, they have a way to pull back out of a situation. These are things that were really important to us. And I think what we're building right now is the gold standard of what's the future of privacy and safety looks like on the internet. And this is just so you know, it's very important to me, right? You and I, we talked earlier, grew up in a version of the internet where none of these existed. And with a world where, cyber bullying can be a lot more real in VR, and having a daughter myself, these are really important things to me. I can't say enough about how we need to get this right. And I want you to know that what we're doing is really what's the word I'm looking for? Without sounding cocky, really world class in terms of safety and privacy.
I know, and it's funny because we grew up, we weren't digital natives, but we grew up during the time the internet was, emerging. But, individuals like your daughter and other, youths who will come into this, they'll be virtual natives, where virtual reality has been a part of their lives. They'll might tune in their whole educational experience, the way they make friends. Just like, when I watched Ready Player One and read the book, it's just like, wow, this is crazy, because I could definitely see that happening in the future. That's where we're going towards. So knowing that you guys are working on making sure that that new world is going to be safe for us, it's heartening, and it's scary because it's a new world. We don't know until people start diving in deep and just going to the far corners of it and seeing what works or what doesn't work. Um, Definitely, I want to talk about, though you are an amazing designer of things digitally, you're also an amazing builder as well. So you make things, you've made, seen your own droids, Star Wars droids, costumes, just amazing things using the current Steam technology that we have out in the world. So now that I've seen also your daughter being involved, what do you see this new generation? How important is STEAM education for our youths, and for just even young adults and adults in general to be, realize that having these skills, having this knowledge is important for where we go as a society?
I think it's very important. I can speak from experience that I'm just seeing my daughter becoming more of a critical human being that is not afraid of failure because of all the projects that we do that are STEAM related, right? So I think STEAM teaches people to experiment and to try things and to figure stuff out. And part of that process is failure. And it may be the hardest lesson to learn for people sometimes. But another thing STEAM does is that it's a growth oriented way of thinking, right? It means I try something, I build something, it may fail because technology fails or my information is incomplete. I need more data, I feed it in and I build it more and it becomes better. And that's just looking at a project, but you transfer that growth mindedness to a person's psyche. And I mean, knock on wood, but I've got a 9-year-old and she's turning out great so far. It has a lot to do with the fact that when things break, the first thing I hear out of her is like, "Don't worry, Dad, we can fix it," right? And she is. I don't want to make this a conversation about a proud dad talking about her kid, but if I may just say, my daughter is so well adjusted and a great human being because of science, because of STEAM, because of being a builder, because when we're working on stuff and I accidentally like ruin a drawing that she's doing because of a bad brush that I used, I imagine myself flipping a table, and instead she's like, "Don't worry, Dad, we can do it again." That's the kind of person she is, and I think that's what the future needs, like more people who are growth minded, and growth mindedness comes from the understanding of building and data and science.
Definitely, it goes into our fandom of Star Trek, where we're envisioning a great society in the future, and as explorers, as people who try things out, you definitely are alluding to the fact that the part of I guess building character, but yourself is failure, but experimentation and understanding it's okay. I remember I took a coding class to build my own website, and I got frustrated by code. I said I wasn't the type of person to do it, but I did attempt it. And now I at least left with the understanding of, okay, maybe coding things is not for me, but I get it. I get why it's an important language and why everything I use is based on code, and that people build things with this amazing skill. And I'm grateful for those people, because definitely whether people agree or not, our life is a little bit better because of technology helping us connect and do things that we had a harder time doing, especially if you're limited by mobility, age, or any other kind of physical ailment. Definitely, we talked about your life, work in creativity and gaming, and there's a lot of things that you shared about the future outlook of society in the virtual space. But I definitely know there's going to be people who, who are now listening, who want to know how to get into what you do, to what should they do to start? Because whether they're a young kid or, an older adult who wants to pivot in their career, what are some things that they should prepare themselves in order to start in a career in the creative arts, technology,
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. There's I'm going to answer this two ways. One, more in the abstract and just like almost like inspirational pointers, and then I'm going to go tactical and like talk about like what you need to do, right? So if you'll bear with me, um, there's a few things that I've learned, and I'm maybe this is unique to myself, or maybe my family, or maybe being Asian, but I being intentful and assertive did not come naturally to me. In fact, the Filipino language that I speak, we use a lot of words like medyo, konti, sana, which are like things that soften the language. Instead of saying yes or declaratively so, we say maybe, we say sometimes, or we say kinda. Like we have words like that interspersed in our language, which shows how flowery and how kind we are as a people. But these are also the same things when brought into an environment where you need to be speaking from intent that start to like weaken you. And so I guess the first tip is to always speak with clarity and intent, and always like be sure of what you want, right? I keep hearing people over time who would come to me and say, hey, I'll do anything. What job is available? I'll do anything. And the first, in relation to what I just said, like that's the worst thing you could say to anyone. When you say you'll do anything, it means you don't have intent on what you want to do, right? So that's the worst thing you could tell someone who has a job for you. Like, I'll do anything. No, you say exactly what you want to do and when you want to do it and how. Have intent and clarity. The second one is something we already talked about, which is to ask questions and grow, right? Make mistakes, ask questions, be humble enough to know that you don't know everything, and grow from it. And then the next one is just be accountable. You'll be making mistakes through your career. And if you are the kind of person that is willing to grow and willing to ask questions, hopefully you're also the same person that says, I am accountable for what I did. I am responsible for my mistakes. These are the things that I did, and these are the things I'm going to do to fix it. And so those are like my is that 3 tips? Yeah, 3 tips for how to do better in life, right? In general, be accountable, ask questions, and speak with clarity. And then in terms of like, how do you get into a career in digital arts? The interesting thing that's available to you now that wasn't available to Danny and me back then is that there are now so many, number one, free tools to do awesome things, whether it's video editing, 3D modeling, the digital arts and whatever. All these things now have apps online that if you just do a search for free something, you'll find Blender, or you'll find Fusion 360, or you'll find Unity for the student license. All these things are free for you. And so take advantage of that. Build something. It's no longer enough to say you want to be a game designer, because every year the bar keeps coming up, right? And so I've been on the hiring manager side of the table now, more so than I was on the other side. And I'll tell you, the expectation now is that people come, and not only do they have a good education, they now have to have made a video game or a VR project that shows what they can do. And the thing is, the tools are there to do it. And then secondly, the means to do it is also there, meaning the means to learn is also there. You don't even have to go to college anymore, right? You can go to YouTube and search whatever. Who thought YouTube was going to be the best school ever? But it is.
Yeah.
Right? You can learn everything from how to make bread to tie a tie or to program AI. It's all there. So use it and then go to the library. There's so much resources, right? So
Not lies, not lies. He's not lying, guys.
yeah, um, there's so much untapped knowledge that exists. Not you would think that it's if you go to the library, it's history and the history and literature. They've got that covered, but also how they constantly update themselves with technology and information about technology. So use the library, use it as a resource. It's there for you. And then, after you do all that, package yourself up really well by making a good, almost like make a website, make a portfolio, make a demo reel, show off your best and make it like very clear. All killer, no filler is what they always told us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still true. Put your best stuff forward and throw away all the crap. And the most important advice I could give you, to go back, to end on something a little bit more abstract again. I had a teacher at the Academy of Art who once told me, your job is your hand has 1,000 bad drawings in it. Your job is to get rid of them to get to the good ones, which was his way of saying practice, right? Like if you draw enough, all those bad drawings get out of your system and you hone the skills to build the good ones. And this is true of everything in life, not just drawing. There's 1,000 bad answers. There's 1,000 bad designs. There's 1,000 bad lyrics. There's 1,000 bad songs in your head right now. And the only way you're going to get to the good ones is to get those out of there. It's so easy to imagine something in your head, but until it's out, you're not really practicing. You're just imagining. And so get it out of your head, put it on paper, put it on in the computer, whatever it is, get it out of your head, and that's how you get better. Sorry, I talked a lot. Sorry,
No,
Danny.
this is, I hope everybody's getting this, and those who are going to watch later, this is great tips because you definitely nailed it on the head. My mentors have told me, Danny, you can have a million great ideas, but if you don't put it out there to be evaluated, shut down, or even praised, you won't know. You're just going to have all these ideas here, not into the world, and that's very important, especially if people want to create and let people see what they want to be creative and be seen, right? You can't just tell them without showing them
Right.
what you can do. And this is very important, especially in your industry where a lot of it is show me what you can do.
Right.
I've seen a lot of amazing things people have done with Blender, especially my friends who never touched 3D modeling program. And I saw a friend who made a Jeep and turntables, and he's in Vietnam and he made this amazing render. And I was like, this is people teaching themselves online,
Right.
and he's a DJ and producer, but he taught himself 3D modeling. So there's a possibility and there's opportunity for many people, but we have to know that there's the tools out there. It's not such a weird small circle anymore where you have to know somebody who lets you in on the secrets. It's all out there in the world. You just have to put time in, right? Yeah.
And then also one last thing I wanted to add to all that, sorry, is also find a mentor. You mentioned your people that taught you. Find a mentor. It's okay to ask questions, like I said earlier, and it's important to learn from people that came before you. I've had many mentors in the past, and I've helped some people out as well. Find someone and meet with them regularly. It's all about finding a time to connect with people on a regular basis, whether it's once a month or every other week. Having a mentor to bounce ideas with allows you to think outside of just your head and make sure that sometimes you don't realize how bad or how good an idea is until it comes out of your mouth. And so having a relationship where you can do that and you can count on someone's experience to guide you is a really important thing.
And definitely, I think we ended on a great note where mentorship, I have many myself that It's very important. And I think of all the tips you gave, finding somebody who's, who will give you honest critique, but also is skilled at what they do in the field that you want, get a couple of them, get a lot of them. Doesn't matter. Just get some. I don't know. Let us know where people can find you, Dino, and any last thoughts you'd like to share with us before we end.
Find me. I would say, I normally would say Twitter, but I'm not on Twitter as often these days. Instagram, I guess. I post pictures. My Instagram is Ignaciogram. So you can try that, and then that'd be the easiest, I think. Yep.
Or your website, I'm sure.
Oh, my website. Yeah.
And any last words that you like to share, to the people out there?
Thank you for thanks for having me first, Danny. Thank you so much. And for people out there, best of luck, and thanks for supporting libraries, and thanks for being thirsty for information. That's really important.
Hey, Dino, thank you for all your work. Also, just pushing the envelope where, the human zeitgeist will, go further down, where we are, what could possibly can happen, in the future. So just let us know what's coming out in the future. I hope to have you back. Definitely.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to be back. And let's talk about Star Trek sometime.
Oh, we will. We're in our secret group. All right, everybody, please be safe. Let us know how you thought this program went. Let us know on our website. Hit the comments. But enjoy, be safe. We'll speak to you soon, and have a great evening.